Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's been forever. I'm in a new space. I finally got me a little filming room, so I'm really excited about that. Today I'm going to be talking about my story into the woman I am today, a bit about my adoption, a bit about my identity as a transracial adoptee. So I'm really excited for this video. Ever since I got the Miss Black Colorado title, I've had a lot of people who don't know me ask about my story, and you know, I'm an open book and I love talking in general, but I love sharing my story and talking about real things, like talking about identity and what shapes you as a person. But first, we have a sponsor. Ana Luisa Jewelry is our sponsor for today's video. I'm really excited to actually be partnering with them. This brand's jewelry is really amazing quality, and what I really like about Ana Luisa is they're all about sustainability. Their jewelry is actually really great everyday casual pieces, which I'm all about. So I did get this paper clip style necklace here. These are my little studs that I got from them. I'm the stud queen. I love simple jewelry and I love stud earrings. So I got these little, are they knots? I don't even know. They're super cute. I've been wearing them literally every day since I got them in the mail. And then I also got this chain right here. This is actually become a staple within my outfits the past week just because it's so simple, and I love simple pieces. I love that this brand, first of all, they shipped really quick and it came, I wish I still had, I'm the worst. I'm such a bad YouTuber. I should still have the box, but I don't. But it was a really small little box, so they weren't sending you all the extra PR fluff, which I really liked. And then all my jewelry came in these little reusable pouches, which I was like, oh, these are cute. I could just throw my jewelry back in here. You can use these to travel with, and they're not just like paper that you're just throwing away. So Ana Luisa, shout out to y'all. Thank you guys so much for sponsoring this video, and let's get right into it. Disclaimer, I have a bit of a cast over my face because the only SPF I have is SPF 50, which gives me a cast. I also just got my eyebrows microbladed, so they're a little, I don't even know, I'm getting used to them. They're healing, so we're gonna work around that situation. I'm gonna start with priming my face. My makeup is everywhere. I'm just gonna, on this channel, I'm just gonna be honestly as real as possible. One, I haven't done my makeup in forever, like full face, like I don't do that. And I have a makeup bag and some of my makeup here. I just don't do my makeup anymore the way I used to. Like I used to be a makeup fiend. This isn't the point of the video, but okay. So if you haven't seen my video, which you probably haven't, about my glow up story, quote unquote, I decided that honestly that video, there wasn't a lot of context in that video about my background. There was, but there wasn't. Like, I feel like if you just hop into that video as a like intro to me, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. And so I always feel like I have to like give people a background about my adoption story for people to like kind of like get me. So if you don't know, which most of you probably don't, I am transracially adopted. And what that means is that my parents are white and I'm black, and I was adopted by a white family when I was a baby. Do I know that exact time, date, age? I actually really don't. My parents try to be telling me, and every time they tell me, it like I either forget or their story changes, or we don't really know. I know, I think I was like 1 when everything got finalized, but regardless, but they met me when I was a baby, but I was in foster care. I should really know this, but I don't. So I was adopted when I was a baby, and I grew up in a suburb of Denver called Highlands Ranch, and you know, if you know anything about Highlands Ranch, it's a pretty white-sided town. And so I was adopted through a closed adoption. So essentially what that means, and I should really be better at knowing like adoption like terms and all of those fun things, but a closed adoption is essentially like I did not have access to my birth family at all. Side note, I actually do know my birth family, but that's through my own discoverings as I've gotten older and through Facebook, honestly, which I can do a whole video on that. If someone wants to know that story, we can dive into that. But yeah, so I was adopted through a closed adoption. And so growing up, I've been living in the same house since I was a baby. Well, kind of on and off, because I did go to college and I did move away for a while. So but I'm here now. I am here now, sadly. Yeah, I grew up kind of not really realizing what was going on. I grew up having like everything a child could have. Like my parents have been so like gracious, and I grew up in an upper middle class white area, so money was never, I mean, I wouldn't say money was never an issue at all. My dad did really, really well for himself while I was growing up, and we had a lot of nice things. You know, they say it on average, I think Black children grow up having a concept of race before white children have a concept of race, and I'm not fully aware of that exact age when Black children have a concept of race, but all I know is that my concept of all of this, like my transracial adoption, race, all of it was very like later in my childhood. Like I truthfully did not see myself different from anyone, like my neighbors, my family. Like I always felt, holy shit, I just completely, this is what I mean, I haven't done my makeup in so long. Growing up was definitely super, I wouldn't even say weird. A lot of people will ask me questions and be like, oh, was it weird for you growing up? And no, I really did not have a grasp on why I was so different from everyone until I got older. But I had an amazing childhood, and I'll never sit here and like bash my parents and say that they didn't give me the world, because they did, and they continue to give me the world as I've gotten into, like, grown into adulthood and everything like that. Growing up, I was a major tomboy, and you know, a lot, I think back now, I'm like, a lot of me being a tomboy back then was not so much by choice, for the simple fact of my mom didn't really know how to like tend to my hair. And you know, a lot of my childhood I would just like wear braids or whatever, and then I started getting relaxers. But when I was getting the relaxers, as I grew up, I was damaging my hair like crazy because I didn't know how to do my hair, right? And this was before like social media really at all. So this is before YouTube, and I could just hop online and figure out how to straighten my hair. Like, it was just crazy. So as a child, I was a major tomboy, and I kind of just like played sports, roughed around with the guys, my older brother and his friends on our neighborhood block. And I did not have a concept of my blackness. And like I said earlier, most children don't have a concept of race, except Black children do develop a concept of race before white kids and most other kids of color, just because of all the racism that Black people face. But I had no idea. When I turned about, I want to say like 6, 7, my parents showed me this art. I'll never forget this. My parents came to me with this newspaper article about this camp, and this camp at the time was called African American Heritage Camp. It was like a heritage camp, and essentially what it was a camp for adopted children of different races with white parents, transracially adopted kids, to go to and to just be around other kids who were transracially adopted. So my parents and I started going to this camp, like me, my brother, my parents, and I remember those camps being my first taste of being around other people like me. Not only just being around other black children, but being around other black children who are also transracially adopted. And when I was a kid, like, I didn't really get how different my family was. Like, I didn't really fully realize the gravity of what I was experiencing, but it was just cool to be around other kids who were black and, you know, talked like me and had similar experiences, even though we were like too young to fully understand, you know, what we were going through. So I started going to these camps and I started to learn little things here and there. We would go every year. And I started to learn different things about like police brutality, and I started to learn a little bit about, you know, my culture and, you know, being black and, you know, all this and that. So as I grew up, I was in white spaces all the time, consistently. I think I had one other black friend growing up, and she was my neighbor, who actually just happened to be transracially adopted. She was half black and half Asian, but she was like as dark as me. So I had her, and I had one other friend growing up who I'm still cool with today, and she is mixed. Hold on, I need to shut the window. And that was it. That was all I had. Oh, and you know, actually, and I had one friend in my elementary school who I'm still super tight with today. And that was it for my black friends. That was it. But at the time, again, as a child, I didn't think it was weird. I just thought that this was my reality, and I thought that, you know, this was normal. So as I got older and stepped like into middle school and high school, that is really when my concept of race really began to form. And, you know, the more I think about how my concept of race started and like understanding that I always knew I was black, right? But I didn't really understand what being black meant, right? Because it's a lot. Okay, we go through a lot. I go into middle school, and I actually did my second year, because I did middle school for 7th and 8th grade. For my 8th grade year, I ended up transferring to this Christian school, which I could do a whole video just about this school. This place was freaking crazy, okay? It was very culty. It was very, like, I don't even know how to describe it, but it was weird. So I ended up transferring by choice. I wanted to go to this school because I grew up religious, and my best friend at the time, who was the other transracially adopted black girl on my block, went to this school. And I had met a bunch of her friends and I loved them. So I was like, I want to go there. I want to be like in this cool Christian small school. I'm not even gonna go there. It was weird. So I go to this Christian school, and I had never experienced racism the way I experienced it at this school. Now, it was not blatant racism. No one was calling me an N-word. I wouldn't say anyone was calling me an N-word like at me as an attack, but people were saying that word. I specifically remember multiple occasions. I was constantly told, oh, you're pretty for a black girl. I was constantly told things of, oh, you're so articulate for a black girl. I remember feeling so uncomfortable with some of my friends' parents, who were obviously looking at me and my friend differently because we were black. I constantly felt this need to prove myself, to prove my blackness. And I was 13, 14, confused child. I was confused. Okay, I'm back. I decided to actually, my camera ended up dying, and I decided to actually just kind of finish up my eyes off camera because I'm not a beauty guru, so it just wasn't working. It just wasn't working, sis. What were we talking about again? Where were we at in the story? Oh yeah, creepy Christian school. That's right. So, yeah, so that was the first instance in my life to where I really was experiencing racism in a way that I just like fully didn't understand the weight of the comments I was receiving, the weight of the just the weight of what racism looks like as side digs, as little, oh, you're so articulate type racist comments. So I ended up transferring from that school to my public high school, which, you know, was better, but not also at the same time. I still was experiencing a lot of awkward racist moments, like my English teacher pulling me aside, talking to me personally about us reading Huckleberry Finn in class, watching video clips of slavery in my English class, and me being the only black person in there, and my teacher and all the students awkwardly looking at me, you know, subliminal racist comments, all of that stuff. So it wasn't better, it wasn't that much better, but it was definitely a little bit better than being at that really weird Christian school. So I went through high school there, and I decided that I wanted to look into an HBCU. For those of you who don't know, I ended up doing my first 2.5 years at Howard University. And so I ended up graduating in 2013 and going to Howard. And I remember the amount of comments I got from adults, not only just from like in my high school, not only just from my high school, but like my friends' parents and stuff, being like, oh, are you ready to go to an HBCU? Are you ready? And I was like, what do they mean by that? And they were like, oh, like, you know, you're kind of just from like Highlands Ranch, you're from this really white area, so are you sure you're gonna feel comfortable like going to an HBCU? And you know, I didn't really fully understand how awkward and so not their place those comments were to make. But you know, at that time I was really just not good at standing up for myself, and not good at, you know, identifying when these people were being completely inappropriate. So fast forward, I ended up going to Howard, which I think I want to do a whole video talking about my Howard experience, because it was just so crazy. And I did a complete 180. I talked about this in my last video. It was so unbelievably wild and life-changing. Not wild in a bad way, wild in a great way. But anyway, so I ended up going there for my first 2.5 years of undergrad, and I ended up leaving because I was not focused. Let me just be honest. Not only is that school expensive because it's a private school, but your girl lost her dang mind. She lost her damn mind up in that institution, and I needed to come home and I needed to focus and get out of college. Like, your girl lost it. So I ended up coming home and attending my local university, which is Metropolitan State University of Denver, where I ended up finishing my undergrad. And when I moved home, I was not only just like unbelievably depressed because I felt like I had failed, which, you know, honestly, and I kind of did. I just felt the weight of my childhood, like, and all of the racism I dealt with, all of the confusion, awkward moments, the lack of cultural diversity here in Denver just kind of come onto my shoulders. And it really was trippy for me, and it freaked me out, and I was really confused about my purpose in this world. And I really also realized, you know, even though I didn't really understand what my purpose was, I realized I wanted to be an advocate for people who have ever felt like an outsider or ever felt like they were faced with these issues of identity. I then got my degree in speech communication and emphasized in broadcasting, which is crazy how full circle life is. I ended up moving back to DC and getting this internship, and it turning into me realizing into a lot of things and realizing that I did not want to be in broadcast at all. And I was out in DC for about a year trying to make that whole broadcast career happen, and I ended up moving home again. So this is where I was really able to kind of come into my own and reshape my identity. So I ended up moving home about 2.5 years ago, and decided to go to aesthetic school, which at the time I was like, dang, like I did all that just to go to aesthetic school when I could have just gone to aesthetic school the whole time. But all of that was meant to happen. So I had decided to do this whole entire career switch, and we're going into 2020. And going into last year, I knew I wanted to honestly be the voice that I never had growing up, right? Because growing up, I didn't grow up with social media like a lot of the kids do now, but I grew up with a lack of being able to relate to people because I had grown up in this white area. I grew up talking a specific way. I grew up dealing with, you know, feeling really uncomfortable in my own skin. I didn't have any, you know, touchable Black role models around me. And so as I had kind of come into my own in the last couple of years, I realized that I wanted to be that for somebody else. So last year I decided that I wanted to go back to grad school and get my MBA, and I had set that intention, and I was researching online scholarships. So this is actually when the pandemic had hit. It's hard to keep track of everything in my head. So right when the pandemic hit, I'm researching scholarships that I can do for getting my MBA, and I wanted to go back to a historically Black college. So I came across the Miss Black USA pageant as a scholarship opportunity, and I was like, oh, like this is cool, like what is this? So at the time, this is when COVID had hit, and there was obviously no literal pageants happening because, you know, we're in the midst of a pandemic. And I was like, okay, this is pretty cool, like let me sign up, just put my name in the pool and see what happens. Again, I was in this mode, which I still am, of where I wanted to push myself and go and become the role model that, not even role model, but become the person that I never thought I could be, and hopefully encourage, you know, other young Black girls or even other kids who have been who are transracially adopted and feel, you know, just kind of alone and like no one really relates with them. So long story short, I applied, did an interview, wrote a little essay, and just submitted it thinking that, you know, I don't have a pageant background, ain't nothing gonna happen. So I ended up getting to be Miss Black Colorado, which is just crazy, and it's been just so full circle with everything that's been going on in my life. It was the most full circle moment ever. And I remember when I had first gotten this title, I had this sense of, you know, feeling unworthy. And this is a feeling that I have really always felt my entire childhood, is like not being worthy to be around all these white people, not feeling worthy enough to even be called beautiful, because I always told, oh, you're beautiful for a Black girl, but you're really not that beautiful. And when I got this title, I just felt really unworthy. I was like, oh, I'm not a pageant girl, you know, this, that, and the other. And I really felt like, is this really supposed to be my purpose? It's been really crazy for me the last year with all the opportunity coming my way and sharing my story and seeing the amount of people that not only identify with my issues of identity through childhood, but talking to other transracial adopted people and hearing their stories and hearing how, you know, their identity, it was hard for them to shape their identity as they grew up. All right, I just took off my little edge scarf wrap thing. All right, y'all, so that was a bit about my story and my adoption and my identity realization. If you want to know more, make sure you guys ask me some questions in the comments below. I do definitely want to talk about how I met my birth family in a different video. That whole topic is really heavy for me. I kind of breezed over it, and I definitely do want to do a full video talking about that. I hope you guys like this video. I hope it kind of made sense. Whenever I talk about my story, I find that I kind of go all over the place just because there's just so much, and I'm still obviously growing into myself as the woman I am today. So I hope you guys like this video, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye.